120 minutes, 80,000 people, and the two best teams on the planet locked in a war of nerves. A red card changed everything. A goalkeeper broke a World Cup final record and still lost. A controversial halftime show divided football. And a 39-year-old legend chased one final miracle that never came. But the winner was decided by a substitute who had barely scored all tournament. One swing of his boot in extra time ended a nation's 16-year wait. In this video, we break down the 2026 World Cup final. Spain's tactical control, the red card and refereeing drama, the winning goal, the disallowed equalizer, the shoving matches, and the question hanging over it all, was this the final night of the greatest career football has ever seen? Let us set the stage first, because you need to understand what was on the line. This was the last of 104 matches. 5 weeks of football across 3 countries, 48 teams, the biggest tournament the sport had ever staged. And when the dust settled, the two nations left standing were exactly the two you would have picked on paper. The number 1 ranked team in the world against the number 2. Argentina against Spain. Argentina walked in as the defending champions. They had lifted the trophy in Qatar 4 years earlier, beating France in one of the greatest finals ever played. Now they were chasing history. Win this, and they would become only the 3rd nation in the history of the sport to win back-to-back World Cups. And they had the one man capable of dragging them there. Lionel Messi. 39 years old, playing in his 3rd World Cup final, chasing a 2nd straight title that would have put a bow on the most decorated career football has ever seen. Spain came in from the other direction entirely. The reigning champions of Europe. A team that had not won this trophy since 2010, 16 long years earlier. And they arrived at the final having done something almost nobody does. They had not lost a single match all tournament. Not one. And here is the number that should make you sit up. Across the entire World Cup, across every group game and every knockout round, Spain had conceded exactly 1 goal. 1. Their defense was a locked vault. Their pressing was relentless. And at the heart of it was a 19-year-old who had turned into the most talked-about player on earth, Lamine Yamal. And the roads they took to reach this stage could not have been more different. Argentina got here the way they always seem to get here. On the edge. One knockout drama after another, surviving on nerve and belief and the certainty that Messi would find a way when it mattered. Their semi-final against England was the perfect example. Trailing, running out of time, and then a late surge sparked by Messi and finished off by Lautaro Martínez dragged them over the line and left an entire nation dreaming again. After that win, Enzo Fernández had hoisted Messi onto his shoulders while the whole squad danced around him. In that moment, Messi did not look like a man on the edge of retirement. He looked like a man having the time of his life. Spain took the opposite path. No last gasp escapes, no penalty shootout heart attacks, just control. Match after match, they took teams by the throat and squeezed until there was nothing left. They did not need late heroics because they rarely let a game get close enough to need them. Where Argentina lived on the counterpunch in the closing minutes, Spain lived on possession and suffocation. One team was a gambler who kept hitting on 16. The other was the house. And in the end, as it so often does, the house was very hard to beat. So that was the story everyone wanted. The old king against the young pretender. Messi against Yamal. The past against the future, standing on opposite touchlines at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. The cheapest tickets on the resale market were reportedly going for nearly $10,000. 80,000 packed the stands. And this was not just going to be a football match. It was going to be a spectacle unlike anything the World Cup had ever attempted. We will get to that spectacle, because it caused more arguments than almost anything on the pitch. But first, the football. And the football told a very one-sided story. From the opening whistle, Spain did what Spain does. They took the ball, and they did not give it back. Yamal was into the match inside 4 minutes. forcing Argentina goalkeeper Emiliano Martínez into an early save. Marc Cucurella won corner after corner down the left. Spain pinned the champions deep inside their own half and simply would not let them out. What made it so suffocating was the shape of it. Spain did not just have the ball. They had it in the right places, with the right men. Pedri pulled the strings from deep, dictating tempo, always available, never rushed. Dani Olmo drifted into pockets of space in the middle of the pitch where no Argentine defender wanted to follow him. And out wide, Yamal kept running directly at the Argentina backline, forcing them backward, pinning them in, refusing to let them settle. Every time Argentina did win the ball, Spain swarmed. 3 white shirts around the man in possession before he could even lift his head. Win it, lose it, win it back, over and over. And Argentina had a plan. It was not a pretty plan, but it was a plan. Sit deep, absorb, draw Spain out, and hit them on the counter with the fastest, most dangerous forwards on the planet. Survive to the whistle and trust that in a final, in the chaos of the closing minutes, Messi could conjure something from nothing. It was the plan of a team that believed the final whistle belonged to them, because it had belonged to them so many times before. The problem was that the counter never came. Here is the statistic that defined the first half, and honestly, the entire match. In the first 45 minutes, Argentina did not take a single shot. Not one. They had 0 touches inside the Spanish penalty box. 0. Messi, the man everyone had come to see, the man carrying a nation on his back, registered just 15 touches in the entire first half. Yamal, on the other side, had almost double that. Spain completed nearly 150 more passes. This was not a heavyweight slugfest. This was a boxer backed into the corner, arms up, taking the body shots and praying for the bell. Argentina did have one moment, the best chance of the half, and it fell to the right man. In the 5th minute, Julián Álvarez threaded a ball through for Messi with only the goalkeeper to beat. For a heartbeat, the whole stadium held its breath, but Spain keeper Unai Simon read it perfectly, rushed off his line, and got there first. The moment was gone. And Argentina would not get another one that clean for a very long time. So the first half ended 0-0, Spain dominant, Argentina hanging on. And then came the interval that everyone had been talking about for weeks. Because this was the World Cup final that decided to borrow from the American playbook. For the first time in the history of the tournament, the final had a proper halftime show. Not a quick ceremony. A full-blown NFL-style production dropped right into the middle of the biggest match in world football. The break stretched well past 25 minutes, far longer than the usual 15, as a stage was assembled on the pitch and a lineup of global superstars took over MetLife Stadium. The names were enormous. Shakira, long treated as the unofficial queen of the World Cup, performed the official tournament anthem alongside Nigerian star Burna Boy. The bill also featured the likes of BTS, Justin Bieber, and Coldplay frontman Chris Martin, backed by an orchestra and even a public school choir from Staten Island. Pyrotechnics, a message of unity, the full American spectacle. And the football world split in two. For one camp, this was the future. A celebration, a global party, the World Cup embracing the entertainment machine of its host nation. For the other camp, this was everything wrong with where the sport was heading. Traditionalists argued that a World Cup final does not need a concert bolted onto the middle of it. That the game itself is the show. That making the world's greatest players stand around in the tunnel for nearly half an hour, legs cooling, rhythm broken, so a pop concert could run its course, was madness. Both managers now had to worry about whether that long layoff would affect their teams. In a final, decided by the finest of margins, a 25-minute break is not a small thing. And the spectacle did not stop with the music. Because this final had another guest who guaranteed controversy the moment he arrived. Sitting alongside FIFA President Gianni Infantino was the President of the United States, Donald Trump. He waved to the crowd. The Canadian Prime Minister greeted him before kickoff. Spain's King Felipe and Queen Letizia were there too. A presidential helicopter arrived overhead. It was, by any measure, one of the most heavily attended and politically charged finals in memory. And according to reporting from the match, when the president was shown to the crowd, a chorus of boos rolled around the stadium. In a tournament FIFA had sold as a festival of unity, the politics were impossible to ignore. For some watching at home, it was a distraction the sport did not need. For others, it was simply the reality of a World Cup staged in this particular moment, in this particular country. Then the whistle blew, the concert stage was cleared, and the second half began. And this is where the tension that had been simmering all night finally boiled over. Spain kept controlling, Argentina kept chasing shadows, and the frustration started to show in the worst way. Not long after the restart, as Spain calmly knocked the ball around midfield, Argentina's Leandro Paredes shoved Spanish midfielder Rodri hard in the back, away from the ball, sending him sprawling to the turf. The whistle went. Players from both sides converged. There was pushing and shouting, a cluster of Argentine players standing over the fallen Rodri while Spanish players tried to block their path. Paredes was booked. The temperature of the match had changed completely. This was no longer a chess game. It was getting nasty. And it is here that one of the strangest controversies of the night unfolded. Because at some point in the confrontation, Spain's Marc Cucurella was seen speaking to Messi while covering his mouth with his hand. That detail matters more than you might think. Because at this World Cup, FIFA had introduced a brand new rule. If a player covered his mouth during a confrontation so that officials could not see or verify what was being said, referees now had the authority to send him off. The rule had been inspired by an incident earlier in the year, when a player had shielded his mouth while directing abuse at an opponent, making it impossible to prove what came out. And it was not a theoretical rule. Earlier in this very tournament, Paraguay's Miguel Almiron had been sent off under it. So when replays showed Cucurella covering his mouth toward Messi, a section of fans immediately asked the obvious question. If the rule is the rule, why is he still on the pitch? Was it selective enforcement? Was it one standard for one team and a different standard for another? This tied directly into a narrative that had been building for weeks. Some supporters had spent the entire tournament accusing officials of giving Argentina favorable treatment on their run to the final. Now, the shoe was on the other foot, and a different set of fans felt the officials had let a Spanish player off the hook. The truth is murkier than either side wants to admit. But the argument raged online long after the final whistle. And then, right at the edge of regulation, came the moment that truly decided the World Cup. Argentina were still in it, still 0-0, still one messy moment away from dragging this to penalties, where they had made a career out of breaking hearts, but their discipline was gone. And their best midfielder was about to hand Spain the advantage they had been hunting all night. Enzo Fernández had already been walking a tightrope. In the 82nd minute, he had picked up a yellow card by most accounts for protesting a non-call, furious that a challenge by Spain had gone unpunished. One booking, one warning, and a smart player in a World Cup final protects that card with his life. Enzo did not. Deep into stoppage time, with the clock about to hit 93 minutes, Argentina launched one more attack. It broke down. Spain sprang forward. A long ball was played over the top, and Spanish defender Pau Cubarsí got to it first to clear the danger. But as Cubarsí stretched to reach it, Enzo Fernández came flying in, late and out of control, and barreled straight through him. The teenager was sent flipping through the air. It was reckless, it was needless, and it was, in the eyes of nearly everyone watching, a clear and obvious foul. Slovenian referee Slavko Vincic did not hesitate. Yellow card, which meant a second yellow, which meant red. Enzo Fernández was sent off, becoming just the 6th player in the entire history of World Cup finals to be dismissed. His night was over, and so in many ways was Argentina's hope. Now, was it the right call? This is where the controversy gets interesting, because even the neutrals mostly agreed. A former World Cup final referee working on the broadcast called it a clear second yellow and said the red card was absolutely correct, no argument. Wayne Rooney, watching on, described the challenge as simply silly. This was not a case of a referee inventing a decision. This was a world-class player, in the biggest game of his life, making a horribly rash choice at the worst possible moment. But that did not stop Argentine fans from feeling that their entire final had just been taken away from them by a single moment of madness. And it did not stop the endless debate about whether the punishment, correct as it was, had turned a fair fight into a mismatch, because the numbers were brutal. Regulation ended 0-0, and now Argentina had to survive 30 minutes of extra time against the best pressing team in the world with only 10 men. Penalties, which had seemed like a nightmare an hour earlier, suddenly looked like the best-case scenario for the defending champions. They just had to hold on. 15 more minutes, then 15 more. They could not do it. The second period of extra time was less than a minute old when the dam finally broke. Spain worked the ball wide and floated across into the box. Nico Williams rose at the near post and got his head to it, keeping the ball alive and nodding it back across the face of goal. And there, arriving right on cue, was the substitute, the man who had chased a goal all tournament and been denied again and again. He met the ball and smashed it past Emiliano Martínez. Ferran Torres. That is the name from the very start of this video. The striker who could not buy a goal for weeks, the man whose finishes had been ruled out and saved and denied, finally delivered the biggest strike of his life at the single most important moment. In the 106th minute of the World Cup final, Ferran Torres won Spain the World Cup. MetLife erupted. 16 years of waiting poured out in one roar. And then, just to twist the knife, Torres nearly had a second. Minutes later, he broke clean through and finished again, and for a heartbeat it looked like he had put the whole thing beyond doubt. But the flag went up. Offside. Replays showed he had started his run a fraction too early, and the goal was chalked off. It was the kind of decision that lights up social media, and it did. Within minutes, clips of the offside were everywhere, some fans furious, some pointing out that the flag had gone up correctly, the endless VAR argument that follows this sport wherever it goes. But here is the crucial part. It did not change anything. Spain were already ahead. The disallowed goal was a footnote, not a turning point. Torres did not need it. Spain did not need it. The damage was already done. Which brings us to the two men this final will be remembered for. And neither of them is Ferran Torres. Start with the goalkeeper. Because Emiliano Martínez had the game of his life, and it still was not enough. Facing a relentless Spanish attack, playing behind 10 men for the final half hour, Martinez made 11 saves. 11. That is a World Cup final record. He kept Argentina alive long past the point where they had any right to be. He was, statistically, the best player on the pitch by a distance. And there is a bitter irony in that, because Martinez has always been one of the most polarizing figures in the game. A goalkeeper who has built a reputation for getting under the skin of opponents, for theatrics and mind games, for turning a shootout into psychological warfare. He has been a villain to half the football world and a hero to the other half for years. And on the night he produced perhaps the single greatest goalkeeping performance a World Cup final has ever seen, none of it mattered. There was no shootout to win, no penalty drama to twist in his favor. Just 90 plus 30 minutes of standing in a storm, keeping the score respectable, and losing anyway. He ended the night on his knees a runner-up, having watched his team fail to register a single shot on target across 120 minutes. 2 shots in the entire match, none on target. 65% of the ball for Spain, 20 shots for Spain. It is one of the most lopsided finals in living memory, and the only reason it stayed close as long as it did was the man in the Argentina goal. And then there is Messi. This was supposed to be the fairy tale, the perfect ending. Ride off with a second straight World Cup and settle every argument about the greatest of all time forever. Instead, Spain did to Messi what almost nobody has ever managed to do on this stage. They erased him. 15 touches in the first half. His single clear chance snuffed out inside 5 minutes. A performance not of his making, but of Spain's design, because you cannot create magic when your team cannot get you the ball. Late on, he flashed a free kick just wide and curled a cross that nearly crept in. Brief reminders of the genius. But Spain threw bodies in front of everything. At one point, Spanish midfielder Mikel Merino blocked a Messi shot with his own face and had to leave the pitch. That was the level of resistance. That was what it took. And so, the question that hovers over everything. Was that the last time we ever see Lionel Messi in an Argentina shirt? He is 39. He retired from international football once before, back in 2016, only to return and win everything there was to win. He has given no clear signal about what comes next, but if this was the end, it was a cruel one. The greatest career the sport has produced, closing not with a lifted trophy but with a defeat outtouched and outrun and outthought by a younger, hungrier team. There is a version of history where he walked away in Qatar 4 years ago, on top of the world, and never risked this. He chose to chase one more, and it slipped through his fingers in New Jersey. So what does it all mean? For Spain, it means everything. This was not a lucky win. This was a coronation, an undefeated march through the toughest tournament on earth, 1 goal conceded in the entire competition, and a final in which they suffocated the world champions so completely that Argentina barely laid a glove on them. Under Luis de la Fuente, this Spain side has become a machine, built not around one superstar, but around a collective that presses, passes, and strangles the life out of opponents. And at the front of it stands Lamine Yamal, 19 years old, a World Cup winner, the face of the next decade of football. The torch did not just pass on that pitch, it was ripped away. And it is worth sitting with what Spain actually achieved here, because in the noise around the final it can get lost. They won the World Cup without losing a game. They won it having conceded a single goal across an entire tournament, in an era where that is supposed to be impossible against 47 other nations all trying to score. They neutralized the greatest player of his generation so thoroughly that he barely touched the ball. And they did it not with one transcendent talent carrying them, but with a system, a philosophy, a group of players who all understood their jobs perfectly. That is not luck. That is a team built to win, that went out and won. Ferran Torres put the ball in the net, but the victory belonged to all 11. And to the men on the bench, and to a manager who has quietly assembled one of the finest sides Spain has ever produced. But we should be honest about the other side of it too. As a spectacle, the final divided people. Some called it a masterclass in control, a defensive and tactical clinic, proof that suffocation can be beautiful if you understand what you are watching. Others called it an anticlimax, a grinding, cagey, foul-strewn affair decided in extra time against 10 men, with barely a shot on target between the two teams for the first 90 minutes. Add in the marathon halftime show, the political circus in the stands, the covered mouths and the shoving matches and the sending off, and you get a final that will be argued about for years. Not because it was a classic in the traditional sense, but because of everything that swirled around it. And maybe that is the real story of this World Cup. The football, in the end, was almost the smallest part of the night. A single goal from an unlikely hero settled it. But the arguments, the controversies, the sense that we watch the end of one era and the beginning of another, those are the things that will linger. Spain are champions of the world, deserving and dominant. Argentina are left to wonder what might have been with 11 men. Whether a disciplined final in which Enzo Fernández kept his head might have carried them all the way to the shootout they craved, and whether that shootout might have delivered the ending they had scripted in their minds for 4 long years, we will never know. That is the cruelty of a single moment in a single match. And somewhere, a 39-year-old walks off a pitch for perhaps the final time, chased by a question that may never get a clean answer. That is the 2026 World Cup final. A win for Spain, a farewell that might be a farewell, and a night that raised as many arguments as it settled. So what do you think? Was Spain a worthy champion, or did the red card decide it all? Should Messi have walked away in 2022 and spared himself this ending? And did the halftime show and the circus around it add to the occasion or cheapen it? Tell me in the comments, because I read them. Before we go, I just want to thank everyone who has watched these World Cup videos throughout the past month. Please like and subscribe because I will continue making deep dives into football's biggest moments and controversies.